Tonight, we travel back in time to a world where daily life was far stranger than you might imagine. Some of these habits may even surprise you. The Library of Alexandria was supposed to contain everything. Founded around 300 BCE in Egypt, it represented an unprecedented ambition to collect all human knowledge under one roof. Scholars estimate it held between 400,000 and 1 million scrolls, though exact numbers are lost to time, like so much else. The library's agents traveled throughout the known world acquiring texts. They copied books from visiting ships, sometimes keeping the originals and returning copies. They purchased entire private libraries. They commissioned translations of works from Babylon, Persia, India, Greece, and beyond. Inside those walls sat astronomical tables accumulated over centuries, mathematical treatises proving theorems we'd have to rediscover, geographic knowledge mapping trade routes and distant lands, philosophical texts exploring questions we still grapple with, scientific observations documenting natural phenomena, historical records of civilizations now known only through fragments, the concentrated intellectual achievement of the ancient world, catalogued and preserved in one magnificent institution. Then it burned, not all at once, not in a single dramatic conflagration. The Library of Alexandria died slowly, through a series of catastrophes spanning centuries. Julius Caesar's siege in 48 BCE likely destroyed part of the collection when fires spread through the harbor district. Christian mobs attacking pagan institutions around 391 CE destroyed more, viewing the library as a temple to false gods and forbidden knowledge. The final remnants may have perished during the Muslim conquest of 642 CE, or simply declined through neglect and indifference until nothing remained but legends of what once existed. The loss is incalculable. We'll never know what astronomical wisdom disappeared, what observations of planetary cycles, carefully recorded over generations, were reduced to ash. What mathematical proofs, what elegant solutions to problems we later struggled to solve. What accounts of ancient cultures, their customs and knowledge, exist now only as references in surviving texts that quote from works no longer extant. Alexandria wasn't alone in its destruction. In 1562, Spanish Bishop Diego de Landa supervised the burning of Mayan codices in Yucatan. Thousands of texts, bark paper books filled with astronomical calculations, historical records, mathematical tables, and cultural knowledge, fed the flames. 4 codices survived by accident, shipped to Europe as curiosities before the systematic destruction. The Dresden Codex, containing those impossibly precise Venus calculations, nearly didn't make it. Everything else burned. The full scope of Mayan astronomical understanding, refined over centuries of observation, vanished in an afternoon of religious zealotry. The Spanish conquest of Peru destroyed Inca knowledge differently. The Inca had no writing system, encoding information in quipu knots and oral traditions. When conquistadors killed the quipu keepers, the knowledge died with them. The knots remain. We have thousands of preserved quipus, but we've largely lost the key to reading them. Whatever astronomical data they recorded, whatever calendrical calculations they preserved, exists now as undecipherable strings. In 1258 CE, Mongol forces sacked Baghdad and destroyed the House of Wisdom. This library held Islamic, Greek, and Persian scientific texts, the accumulated knowledge of multiple civilizations synthesized through centuries of scholarship. Legend says Mongol soldiers threw so many manuscripts into the Tigris River that the water ran black with ink. Astronomical treatises, mathematical works, medical texts, philosophical arguments, all drowned in the river or burned in the siege. Nalanda University in India suffered similar fate around 1193 CE. Invading armies burned the library, destroying Buddhist astronomical and mathematical texts. The fire reportedly burned for 3 months. The collection was so vast as patterns emerge from these catastrophes. Conquering forces target knowledge repositories. Destroying a culture's intellectual heritage completes the conquest more thoroughly than military victory alone. Religious conflicts produce particularly devastating losses. Christian mobs destroyed pagan libraries. Islamic armies eliminated pre-Islamic texts. Spanish Catholics burned indigenous American knowledge. Each group believed they were eliminating heresy, false belief, dangerous ideas. Each created gaps in human understanding that we're still trying to fill. Natural disasters contributed too. Fire was constant threat. Papyrus and paper burn easily. Flooding destroyed collections. Time itself degraded texts beyond recovery. Stone tablets and monuments survived better than organic materials, which is why so much ancient knowledge exists now only in architectural form. The loss isn't just historical curiosity, it's practical. What if Alexandria's astronomical tables had survived? Would we have maintained continuity of ancient observation, reaching our current understanding of the cosmos centuries earlier? What techniques did the Maya develop that burned with their books? What mathematical shortcuts did medieval Islamic scholars discover that drowned in the Tigris? We work from fragments, incomplete records, references to lost works in surviving texts, archaeological inference from monuments whose builders left no written explanations. The ancient world possessed astronomical knowledge we're only now beginning to appreciate. But we're trying to reconstruct it from pieces. Puzzle fragments with most of the picture missing. The libraries burned. The knowledge keepers died. The institutions collapsed. And humanity forgot more than we remember. Earth was warming. The last ice age was ending. Glaciers that had covered much of North America and Europe were retreating northward, melting under rising temperatures. Mammoths and mastodons grazed in grasslands. Giant ground sloths moved through forests. Saber-toothed cats hunted prey that no longer exists. And humans, anatomically modern humans who had existed for over 100,000 years, were spreading across continents, developing increasingly sophisticated cultures. Then, around 12,800 years ago, something went catastrophically wrong. Temperatures plunged, not gradually over centuries, but rapidly, perhaps over decades or even years. Earth returned to near ice age conditions. This period, the Younger Dryas, named after an Arctic wildflower that became common again during the cold, lasted about 1,200 years. Then, just as suddenly, warming resumed. Within decades, temperatures shot back up, glaciers melted, and Earth's climate stabilized into the patterns we recognize today. The standard explanation involves ocean currents. Massive meltwater from retreating glaciers flowed into the North Atlantic, disrupting the conveyor belt circulation that carries warm water north and cold water south. This shutdown caused rapid cooling in the Northern Hemisphere, triggering the Younger Dryas cold period. Eventually, the system restarted, warming resumed, and climate stabilized. This theory is supported by oceanographic evidence and climate modeling. But a controversial alternative hypothesis has emerged, backed by physical evidence that's harder to dismiss. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis proposes that a comet struck Earth or exploded in the atmosphere around 12,800 years ago. The evidence is geological. Sediment layers dating to this exact period contain platinum concentrations far higher than normal background levels. Platinum is rare in Earth's crust, but common in asteroids and comets. Finding it concentrated in layers across multiple continents suggests extraterrestrial origin. The same layers contain nanodiamonds, microscopic diamonds formed only under extreme heat and pressure, the kind generated by impacts or airbursts. They contain shocked quartz, another high-pressure indicator. They show widespread carbon spherules, suggesting massive burning. Soot layers indicate continental-scale wildfires. The evidence points to something violent occurring simultaneously across vast geographic areas. And at this exact chronological boundary, over 75% of North American megafauna went extinct. Mammoths, mastodons, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, American lions, short-faced bears, dire wolves, all vanished. South America and Australia experienced similar extinctions, though less severe. Something killed these animals rapidly, not through gradual climate change, but through sudden catastrophe. If a comet impact or airburst occurred, the effects would have been apocalyptic. The initial explosion would have ignited fires across continents. The heat pulse would have killed anything in the line of sight. Shockwaves would have flattened forests. If the impact occurred over ice sheets, as some researchers propose, the sudden melting would have triggered massive flooding, ocean levels rising rapidly, drowning coastal areas, creating the flood memories preserved in hundreds of cultural traditions. The climate disruption would have followed. Dust and soot in the atmosphere blocking sunlight, temperature collapse within years, agriculture-capable climates shifting or disappearing. Human populations that had developed sophisticated hunting cultures suddenly facing extinct prey species and hostile climate conditions. Any advanced Paleolithic cultures would have been destroyed, not necessarily killed. Humans are remarkably adaptable, but their social structures would have collapsed. Their knowledge systems would have fragmented. If they'd accumulated astronomical observations over thousands of years, maintaining multi-generational records, tracking celestial cycles, building monuments encoding cosmic knowledge, all of that institutional memory would have been lost when the institutions themselves dissolved in catastrophe. Archaeological evidence shows a gap. Before the Younger Dryas, Paleolithic peoples created sophisticated cave art. Lascaux in France, Altamira in Spain, paintings demonstrating artistic skill and possibly astronomical symbolism. They created bone tools with tally marks suggesting mathematical thinking. They built structures like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, dated to 9500 BCE, right after the Younger Dryas ended, showing megalithic construction capabilities. and astronomical alignments. Then comes the Younger Dryas Cold Period. Archaeological sites show population decline. Cultural complexity seems to regress. Then, after the warming resumes around 11,600 years ago, agriculture emerges. Settled communities develop. Civilization begins, supposedly for the first time. But what if agriculture and civilization weren't new inventions? What if they were reconstructions? Knowledge preserved by survivors who remembered the old world before catastrophe destroyed it. This could explain why civilizations like Egypt and Sumeria appear so fully formed. They weren't developing from scratch, but rebuilding from memory, recovering knowledge their ancestors possessed before the reset. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis remains controversial. Mainstream geology hasn't reached consensus. Many researchers argue the evidence admits alternative explanations, but the evidence exists. The platinum layer exists. The nanodiamonds exist. The megafauna extinction exists. The sudden climate change exists. Whether caused by impact or ocean current disruption, something profound happened 12,800 years ago that fundamentally altered human civilization's trajectory. And if advanced Paleolithic cultures existed before that event, if they'd accumulated astronomical knowledge we're only now rediscovering, their destruction would explain one of history's deepest mysteries. Why ancient peoples knew things they shouldn't have been able to know. Because they inherited fragments. Because someone survived who remembered the old knowledge. Because civilization didn't begin. It restarted. Ancient Egypt appears in history around 3100 BCE, already sophisticated. Hieroglyphic writing already developed. Mathematical systems already functional. Astronomical knowledge already advanced. Monumental architecture already achievable. The pyramids begin within a few centuries. There's no clear developmental phase. No evidence of gradual progression from simple to complex. Egypt emerges fully formed, as if someone switched on civilization at high capacity. Sumeria shows the same pattern. Around 4000 to 3000 BCE, cities appear in Mesopotamia with cuneiform writing, complex irrigation, astronomical observation, and mathematical systems already operational. The transition from scattered agricultural villages to sophisticated city-states seems almost instantaneous in archaeological time. Standard archaeology explains this as rapid development during the Neolithic Revolution. Agriculture created food surpluses, allowing specialization. Specialists could focus on writing, astronomy, mathematics, and architecture. Civilization arose naturally once humans settled into farming communities. The lack of clear antecedents simply reflects poor preservation. Earlier developmental stages existed, but left little archaeological trace. But anomalies suggest something else might be happening. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey dates to 9500 BCE, before agriculture supposedly enabled complex society. The site contains massive megalithic architecture, carved pillars weighing tons, decorated with sophisticated animal reliefs, astronomical alignments suggesting knowledge of celestial patterns. This wasn't built by simple hunter-gatherers struggling for survival. This required organization, planning, and knowledge that shouldn't exist before settled civilization. And then, around 8000 BCE, the site was deliberately buried. Someone filled in the structures with rubble, carefully interring them, and walked away. Why would builders of such sophisticated monuments abandon and hide their creation? Çatalhöyük, another Anatolian site, dated to 7500 to 5700 BCE, shows urban planning sophistication. Densely packed buildings, social organization, artistic expression, and possible astronomical knowledge in building orientations. Again, this predates the supposed rise of civilization in Egypt and Sumeria by thousands of years. What if Egyptian and Sumerian astronomical knowledge wasn't newly developed, but inherited? What if these civilizations were rebuilding from fragments of older knowledge that survived catastrophe? This could explain the anachronistic sophistication, advanced mathematics appearing without clear developmental history, precise astronomical observations, with no evidence of the centuries of refinement such precision would require. Monumental architecture emerging without obvious precedent. Many ancient cultures claimed exactly this. Egyptian texts reference the first time, a golden age before recorded dynasties. Sumerian king lists include impossibly long reigns before the flood, suggesting mythologized memory of earlier periods. Greek traditions spoke of previous ages, golden times before decline. Hindu texts describe cycles of civilization rising and falling across vast time spans. Were these myths or cultural memory? If the Younger Dryas destroyed advanced Paleolithic cultures, survivors would have preserved what they could. Astronomical knowledge too important to lose, mathematical systems necessary for rebuilding, architectural principles encoded in oral traditions. Their descendants, creating Egypt and Sumeria, would inherit this knowledge. Building on foundations laid by ancestors we can no longer see in the archaeological record. The evidence doesn't prove this hypothesis, but it suggests our timeline might be incomplete. That civilization didn't begin 5,000 years ago, but restarted after something older ended. That ancient peoples knew impossible things because the knowledge wasn't impossible. It was inherited from cultures we've forgotten, destroyed by catastrophes we're only beginning to understand. Archaeology used to require digging, careful excavation with trowels and brushes, slowly revealing what lay buried beneath centuries of soil. But technology has transformed the search for lost civilizations. Now we can see through jungle canopy, detect structures beneath sand, and map entire cities without ever breaking ground. Satellite imaging analyzes subtle variations in vegetation and soil composition invisible to human eyes. Plants grow differently over buried stone. Moisture collects in ancient foundations. Temperature signatures reveal walls hidden underground. From orbit, satellites detect these patterns, marking locations where something human-made lies beneath modern landscapes. LiDAR, light detection and ranging, fires laser pulses from aircraft, measuring how long they take to bounce back. The lasers penetrate forest canopy, mapping ground topology with centimeter precision. Entire cities hidden under jungle for centuries suddenly appear in the data, their streets and buildings revealed, as if someone stripped away the trees digitally. Ground-penetrating radar sends electromagnetic waves into the earth, detecting density changes that indicate buried structures. Ancient walls, foundations, tombs, all show up on radar screens without disturbing a single grain of soil. These technologies are rewriting what we thought we knew. In Cambodia, archaeologists believed Angkor Wat stood as the center of a modest medieval empire. Then LiDAR scans in 2015 revealed the truth. Buried under jungle surrounding the famous temple lay elaborate urban infrastructure, roads, canals, neighborhoods, agricultural systems. The Angkor civilization wasn't modest. It was the largest pre-industrial city complex in the world, possibly covering over 1,000 square kilometers. The empire we thought we understood was a fraction of what actually existed. Central America told a similar story. Researchers flew LiDAR surveys over Guatemala's jungles and discovered thousands of previously unknown Mayan structures. Pyramids, palaces, entire cities. Population estimates for the Mayan civilization suddenly tripled. We'd been studying Maya for over a century, and technology revealed we'd missed most of it, hidden beneath trees we couldn't see through until now. Egypt continues yielding secrets despite intensive study for 2 centuries. Satellite imagery detected 17 lost pyramids and over 3,000 ancient settlements invisible to archaeologists on the ground. Slight differences in how crops grow over buried structures revealed monuments and cities no one knew existed. Egypt, the most excavated country on Earth, still holds surprises visible only from space. Even well-studied sites reveal hidden complexity. Ground-penetrating radar at Stonehenge discovered a massive timber monument buried near the famous stones, dubbed Superhenge, a wooden circle that predated or accompanied the stone construction. The site everyone thought they understood contained entirely unexpected features just below the surface. Some discoveries challenge comfortable timelines. In South Africa, the Blauwboschkraal stone circle complex shows astronomical alignments that some researchers, using astronomical dating techniques, argue could be 75,000 years old or more. This dating remains controversial. Most archaeologists place the site much more recently, but it represents how technology enables new questions about human symbolic behavior's antiquity. Underwater archaeology using sonar mapping has found submerged settlements off coastlines worldwide. When sea levels rose over 400 feet following the Ice Age, they drowned coastal plains where humans had lived for millennia. Cities that thrived 12,000 years ago now lie beneath oceans. Off India's coast, sonar has detected structures near Dwarka, potentially 9,000 years old. In the Mediterranean, Bronze Age ports sit underwater. The Black Sea holds drowned settlements from when sea levels catastrophically rose around 7,500 years ago, potentially inspiring flood myths. Each discovery emerges from peer-reviewed research conducted by reputable institutions, published in scientific journals. These aren't fringe claims. They're mainstream archaeology, transformed by technology that reveals what human eyes cannot see. And with each revelation, the picture of ancient human achievement grows more complex, more sophisticated, more widespread than previous generations imagined. The scanning continues. New LiDAR surveys, better satellite resolution, improved radar technology. Each technological advance reveals more buried cities, more forgotten monuments, more evidence that ancient peoples accomplished far more than we credited them with. The Earth still holds secrets. Technology is finally allowing us to see them. And what we're finding challenges everything we thought we knew about how ancient civilizations developed, how widely they spread, and how sophisticated they truly were. The night sky changes. Not just through the night as stars wheel overhead, but across years, decades, millennia. Precession shifts star positions. Planetary alignments that occur today won't repeat for centuries. Understanding what ancient peoples saw when they looked up requires more than modern observations. It requires reconstructing the past sky precisely as it appeared to them. Astronomical software makes this possible. Programs like Stellarium can simulate the night sky from any location on Earth at any date in history. Set the coordinates to Stonehenge. Set the date to 3000 BCE and watch the exact sky that Neolithic builders saw. The software accounts for precession, calculates planetary positions, shows which stars were visible above the horizon at specific times. This isn't approximation. It's precision calculation based on known orbital mechanics, allowing researchers to test whether ancient structures truly align with celestial events. The technology validates or disproves alignment theories with mathematical certainty. Karahunj in Armenia contains over 200 standing stones, many with circular holes drilled through them. Local tradition called it an ancient observatory, but without proof. Mainstream archaeology dismissed this as folklore. Then researchers used astronomical software to check the holes' alignments. The stones pointed to specific stars and constellations, exactly as they would have appeared around 5500 BCE. The alignments weren't random. They tracked stellar positions with precision that required deliberate design and astronomical knowledge. Karahunj functioned as an observatory, potentially one of the world's oldest. At Karnak in France, thousands of megalithic stones stand in long rows stretching across the landscape. Their purpose remained mysterious for centuries. Computer modeling using astronomical software revealed alignments to lunar standstill positions, the 18.6-year cycle where the moon's rising and setting positions reach maximum and minimum points on the horizon. Tracking this cycle requires multi-generational observation. Someone at Karnak knew about it 5,000 years ago and built stone markers commemorating it. Teotihuacan in Mexico, that massive ancient city dominated by the Pyramid of the Sun and Pyramid of the Moon, shows astronomical planning throughout its layout. Software analysis revealed that the city's orientation aligns with the Pleiades star cluster as it appeared around 150 CE, when the city was at its height. At specific times, the Pleiades reached zenith directly overhead, and architectural features throughout the city marked this moment. The entire urban plan incorporated astronomical knowledge, making the city itself a cosmic instrument. This technology doesn't just confirm alignments, it disproves false claims too. Some proposed astronomical correlations fail when tested against software reconstruction of ancient skies. The stars weren't where they needed to be for the claimed alignment to work. This rigorous testing lends credibility to confirmed alignments. When software validates a structure's celestial orientation, accounting for precession and planetary positions, the result isn't speculation. It's mathematical proof. The implications change how we interpret ancient sites. Structures dismissed as purely ceremonial revealed themselves as sophisticated astronomical instruments. Buildings oriented seemingly randomly show deliberate alignment to celestial events. What looked like artistic choice was scientific precision. The technology democratizes archaeoastronomy too. Previously, only specialists with access to astronomical tables and complex calculations could test alignment theories. Now, anyone with software can verify claims, set the coordinates, set the date, check if the alignment works. This transparency makes the research more trustworthy and accessible, allowing independent verification of published findings. Researchers are systematically testing thousands of ancient sites worldwide, slowly mapping a global network of astronomical observation positions. Each confirmed alignment adds another data point. Each site reveals ancient peoples incorporating cosmic knowledge into sacred architecture. The pattern emerges clearly. Astronomy wasn't peripheral to ancient cultures. It was central. They built their grandest monuments as connections between earth and sky, encoding celestial patterns into permanent stone markers that still align thousands of years later. The software keeps running. Archaeologists keep testing sites, and ancient structures keep revealing astronomical sophistication that shouldn't exist according to conventional understanding of primitive tools and limited knowledge. The stars ancient peoples watched still follow the same paths. The monuments they built still point to those stars. And now, finally, we have tools precise enough to understand what they were showing us. We know what ancient cultures knew about the cosmos. The precision of their observations is documented. The sophistication of their astronomical understanding is proven. The monuments encoding celestial knowledge still stand. But we haven't answered the most fundamental question. Why? Why did they care so much? Why invest thousands of person-hours building Stonehenge to mark solstice sunrise? Why maintain observational records across generations to track precession? A cycle so slow that no individual would see meaningful change. Why create monuments that required enormous effort for purposes that seem purely abstract? The answers are probably multiple, overlapping, and more complex than simple categorization allows. Agriculture provides obvious motivation. Knowing when to plant crops meant survival. Too early and seeds rot in cold soil. Too late, and the growing season ends before harvest. Celestial events provided reliable calendars, more accurate than counting days. Solstices marked seasonal extremes. The heliacal rising of certain stars coincided with flood cycles, seasonal changes, or optimal planting times. For cultures without written calendars or standardized timekeeping, the sky was the universal clock, and reading it correctly meant life or death for entire communities. Religion and cosmology provided deeper motivation. Ancient cultures saw the cosmos as divine. The sky wasn't empty space populated by random light. It was the realm of gods, the pattern underlying reality, the architecture of creation itself. Understanding celestial movement meant understanding divine will. Priests who could predict eclipses or planetary positions demonstrated connection to cosmic forces. Temples designed as earth mirrors of heaven, as above, so below, literally incorporated divine geometry into physical structures. Astronomical knowledge wasn't just practical. It was sacred wisdom connecting humans to the fundamental order of existence. Navigation gave astronomy practical survival value beyond agriculture. Polynesian cultures crossed thousands of miles of open ocean using star positions for guidance. Without stars, oceanic voyages became impossible. Seafaring peoples needed astronomical knowledge as desperately as agricultural peoples needed calendars. The sky provided the only reliable navigation system available before modern instruments. But there's a darker possibility, a more troubling motivation. What if astronomical obsession stemmed from traumatic memory? If catastrophic events came from the sky, cometary impacts, solar storms, climate disruptions caused by cosmic forces, then tracking celestial patterns becomes survival imperative. Watch for anomalies. Record unusual behavior. Try to predict the next catastrophe before it arrives. Ancient texts frequently associate celestial events with disaster. Comets meant war, disease, dynastic collapse. Eclipses terrified populations precisely because the sky was departing from normal patterns, suggesting cosmic forces were becoming unstable. Flood myths worldwide describe not just water, but fire from heaven, the sky falling, stars moving wrongly. If ancient cultures witnessed or inherited memory of cosmic catastrophe, their astronomical vigilance wasn't curiosity, it was existential necessity. The sky had killed their ancestors. They needed to watch it constantly to survive. The knowledge preservation motivation adds another layer. If ancient peoples inherited astronomical wisdom from earlier civilizations destroyed by catastrophe, preserving that knowledge became sacred duty. They encoded it in stone because stone survives fire and flood. They taught it through priesthoods because institutions outlast individuals. They built redundantly monuments, myths, mathematics, ensuring knowledge survived even if one preservation method failed. The scale of investment reveals how critical this was to them. Stonehenge required thousands of person-hours over generations. The Nazca lines in Peru, massive geoglyphs, some aligned to solstices, demanded enormous effort for purposes that remain mysterious. Ancient peoples didn't build these monuments casually. They committed resources, time, and labor on civilizational scales because the astronomical knowledge they encoded mattered profoundly. We may never fully understand their motivations. Ancient minds thought differently than modern ones. Their cosmology, their fears, their hopes, these remain partially opaque despite our best archaeological and anthropological efforts. But one thing is clear. Astronomy wasn't hobby or academic curiosity. It was essential. And they pursued it with dedication that still commands respect 5,000 years later.